My name is Kaylee Rhodes, and I'm 18 years old, and I was diagnosed with Sibo in November of 2015.
Sibo stands for small intestine bacterial overgrowth. It's a bacterial overgrowth where the bacteria that's normally in your large intestine and is supposed to be there overgrows into your small intestine, where the small intestine is not set up to handle that bacteria, so it begins to wreak havoc in a number of ways.
Must have been 2013, maybe 2012, I started feeling sick after I would eat certain things, and I didn't know what it was. So I went into the doctor in 2014, and I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And she took me off gluten for my stomach problems and to do with the thyroid. And then that didn't help, so she took me off dairy. And that didn't help, so she allergy tested me and took me off all the foods I showed signs of reacting to for 3 months. And that helped, but as soon as I added them back in, it came back. So she tested for Sibo. And so the whole course was almost 2 years of treatment before I found out I had Sibo.
So we've got bacteria in our entire digestive tract, but in the small intestine, that's where all the nutrient absorption and processing happens. And so if you have an overgrowth of bacteria in that area, it's really going to compete for your nutrient absorption. And so it's really best to get that bacteria under control so that your body can absorb and utilize the nutrients that it needs.
Well, there's a lot of different ways someone can get Sibo. One of the ways that they're seeing more of now, or doing more research now, is food poisoning. So after a bout of food poisoning, it tends to affect the motility, and then that's when an overgrowth often occurs.
I was diagnosed in November, and from there until about April, I was feeling good. I was also on herbal antibiotics. And then about April, I got food poisoning, and that reverted everything again. And I really haven't been feeling good since.
You can get Sibo many different ways, but it's mostly when there's an impairment to the function of the digestive tract.
You can have changes that range from, wow, I have gas, bloating, other weird bowel habits and problems, all the way to rheumatoid arthritis and autoimmune diseases that your body is just freaking out about.
Additional signs are anxiety, skin issues,
and joint issues, and not just gut issues, but beyond that.
I mean, there can be a lot of different symptoms for people. I really see a large variety in people.
A typical reaction to a food I can't handle is first abdominal pain, cramps, and then diarrhea. And then, it might persist for several days after I ate the food that triggered it.
When we get the overgrowth in our small intestine, the bacteria there tend to damage the lining of the small intestine. So some people call that leaky gut.
Basically, if you have a lot of inflammation going on there, you have, for lack of a better analogy, it turns your digestive tract into a sieve. And so things are getting through that you don't necessarily want to get through, and that is going to have a huge impact on your immune system and how your immune system is going to be responding.
But then they also have some kind of tragedy in their life where it's a death of a family member, something like that, where it's a major trauma to them. And so my opinion is that brings their immune system down further. And so if they had any pre-existing condition like food poisoning or what have you, that's when things kind of go from bad to worse for them.
I look at it as it's impairing your body from getting the nutrients it needs. So a lot of the long-term risks can be anywhere in your body. You can start to experience it because it's like your body's constantly being depleted.
And so that's why a lot of people tend to be anemic or have issues with B12, vitamin D, is because you're not absorbing all the nutrients in the bacteria is feeding off of them. And then the bacteria emit gases which cause symptoms like gas and what have you.
The digestive tract is sort of like this big muscle, if you think about it. Something has to come in and it's moving all the way through. So if you have sort of like a paralysis of sorts in the digestive tract, then things aren't going to be moving out properly. So basically it can become a breeding ground, or if we also think of the digestive tract as a way that our body's eliminating toxins, then if you have constipation, for instance, then you're not necessarily removing your toxins either. So that's going to lead to this just chronic unwell feeling.
If anyone's feeling symptoms of Sibo or IBS usually, I would recommend they get tested immediately, because the faster you get it under control, the easier it's going to be, I think, because the faster you can get your gut healed, it's not going to just keep eroding, you might say.
When you get a test, you get a full box in the mail, and inside of it is a collection device and 10 vacuum sealed test tubes and instructions and a patient record to put the times that you did each of the tubes. You take the collection device and you take a regular breath in. As you're breathing out, you put the tube onto the needle and it sucks in some of the air, and you literally do that 10 times, just on a scheduled time pace. When it comes back to us, we literally get a box with 10 test tubes in it, and we run it to check for methane and hydrogen. Methane is only created by bacteria, not the human body. So when we run the test, it tells us methane and hydrogen production. We make a cool chart of what numbers we get, and we send the results to the doctors.
And then if you can't get tested right away, just start cutting out foods, and see what you have a reaction to. Try doing it on your own if you can't get tested right away.
When I think about treatment, there's really 3 goals to treatment that I see, and they're overlapping goals. So the first one is reducing the bacterial load. And so typically that is going to require some type of antibiotic usage, and either it can be pharmaceutical or it can be, I use herbal antibiotics a lot for my patients. The second goal to treatment is healing the environment. Or changing the environment, and that's going to come from the dietary changes. And then lastly is healing the gut and restoring function.
It's really helpful to find a diet. And so if somebody is having more minor symptoms, I think often a low FODMAP diet is enough. So FODMAP stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols.
So following this diet is very hard. It's very strict. And actually, because I've fallen back so many times, I'm still on a very strict diet. You're supposed to be able to add things back in gradually, but because I've reverted a couple times, I haven't been able to add near as many things in.
If you have more severe symptoms, I recommend the Sibo specific diet, and that is a combination of the low FODMAP diet and the specific carbohydrate diet.
I think diet and exercise are the 2 most important things you can do in your life.
One is to figure out how to manage symptoms, and another is to find your team of people that are going to help you.
I would say the biggest challenge is anything social, because people like to eat anywhere they go, and you have to say, no, I can't eat that, can't eat that. You get made fun of a lot. Then the other one is, it's so hard to figure out what you're going to react to. Basically, you can't eat anything anyone else eats, and they're always trying to press it on you. I usually eat before I go anywhere where I know there's going to be food. People try telling me, oh, eat this, eat that, so I just say no, and if they keep pressing, then I'll tell them why, and then maybe they don't believe you have that problem because you look fine outwardly.
Just don't blame yourself. I mean, I think in the beginning when a lot of doctors were diagnosing this, it was more like, oh, maybe your diet's been bad, or maybe you're too stressed, and it's not. I don't think it's the patient's fault. I think that it's the patient's responsibility to learn as much as we can about Sibo and to know ourselves better so that we can heal. And that's our responsibility, but it's not our fault necessarily, if that makes sense.
My mom is very supportive of me, and my sister. But yeah, my mom goes above and beyond, making new dishes, different things I can eat. And
It's also good to find someone that can support you just on a friend level, someone else who has Sibo, or going to the Sibo discussion group on Facebook or something, anything like that, where you're able to get support.
so I never had Facebook until 3 months ago. I got it to join the Sibo group, and it's really helpful. You know, you feel like you're the only person struggling, and it's pretty tiring, but you go on there and there's people with the same problems, same challenges, sometimes even solutions that you can use on yourself. Makes you think more about what you eat, you know.
There's lots of things that we can't change and that we don't have control over, but what we choose to put in our mouth on a daily basis is one thing that we have a lot of control over.
If I could go back in time knowing what I know now, I wouldn't be eating all that garbage I was eating and wreck my gut in the first place. And I had a lot of stress too. And now that I know ways to deal with my stress, I think that would help a lot in preventing it.
It really comes down to how well that digestive tract is working, how you're eating. Are you eating under stressful conditions? Are you eating poor quality foods? Are you eating high sugar foods?
I think the biggest thing to prevent SIBO in the first place would be cut out sugar and processed foods. I think those are the two biggest things. You know, eat more whole foods.